Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here today with our Total Wellness Tuesday episode of the week, where we are going to be breaking down once and for all exactly why it's been said now for over 2,500 years that all disease begins in the gut. And I know that this is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of conventional medicine-minded people, where they believe that autoimmune issues like rheumatoid arthritis is centered in the knuckles or the hands or the small joints, or with Hashimoto's that it's specifically in the thyroid, or with MS that it's in the myelin sheath of the nervous system, or fibromyalgia that it's located somewhere in terms of the fascia or the muscles in the body, or with Crohn's or colitis that it's meant specifically for the intestines. So I want you to understand that however you are looking at your specific ailments, and I'm going to go through them in just a minute, the likelihood that it is tied in some way, shape, or form to intestinal permeability and gut-based issues is over 90%. So I want to really reiterate this. This will be kind of the podcast where I won't do again, but I'll refer back to it, that all disease pretty much, meaning there's always a few occasions, but all disease, we're talking about chronic disease here, begins in the gut. I'm not talking about a genetic, acute, congenital issue that has been with you since birth. We're not talking about that. But we are, and I'm going to actually quote the Harvard-based research study that came out just over a year ago, that finally, again, in terms of naturopathic medicine, traditional naturopathy, bioregulatory medicine, Ayurveda, Hippocrates quoted this 2,500 years ago. All disease begins in the gut. Ayurveda has been talking about this. I'm going to give you exactly why in just a moment. But January of last year, this came out, and I'll give you where in just a moment. It's called All Disease Begins in the Gut, Role of Zonulin-Mediated Gut Permeability in the Pathogenesis of Chronic Inflammatory Diseases. Okay, so let's just talk about, and this was out of Boston, Alicio Fasano that I've spoken about before, January 2020. I will link it up today. If you want to, it's a nice article and some really great graphics and all that. If you want to read this over, head over to stephencabral.com/1943. You can share this with friends, family. You can share it with, if you're an IHP, you can share it with your private wellness clients. If you're a doctor, you can share it with your patients. Okay, so here's the thing. Now, again, this has been now looked at for decades now, but I remember back in my day when I was sick 25 years ago or so, conventional medicine would laugh at the thought of intestinal permeability or gut permeability. Some doctors even still do today when their colleagues are actually writing peer-reviewed and published work on all of this. Again, and so it's like, those are the dark ages that people a lot of doctors are still just not with it in terms of current research. And that's because a lot of times we like to put our medical doctors up on these godly pedestals that I don't even think is fair to them, to be honest with you, because most medical doctors, the truth is this, that they graduate, and yes, they're very intelligent, they're very smart. I'm not taking any of that away, but for the most part, and this goes for a lot of doctors, not just medical doctors, that's it. Like their education is done. I mean, they might go to conference once a year, once every other year, but they're not reading dozens of books a year, to keep up with things. It's just not. They don't even have, well, I shouldn't say they don't have time, because I don't have time. A lot of our IHPs don't have time. My colleagues don't have time, but we make the time because this is our profession, and we're really trying to do our best for the patients and wellness clients that we serve. But anyway, I don't want to make that about what should be done or not done. I just want to impress upon you a point that most disease begins in the gut. And what is your gut? Well, your gut, and I'll bring over my model here. So if you're watching this on video, you can see my buddy Walter here. You can see that this stomach leads into this small intestine. Okay, so you have about 21 feet or so of small intestine, and that small intestine leads to this ileocecal valve from the ileum to the cecum right there, and your large intestine is about 5 to 6 feet long. So it's going to be slightly longer in taller people and slightly shorter in some shorter people. So what does this look like though? Well, we've got an area that would literally cover the surface of a tennis court. So if you were to take your intestines and you were to take out your entire gut, which is about 28 feet long or so, and you were to spread it all out, and you were to flatten all the villi, the microvilli inside, which are these little shag finger-like structures that help to metabolize your food and create vitamins and minerals and neurotransmitters, well, if you just flatten all of that out, it would actually cover a tennis court. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. But over time, and I'll share with you why, there can begin to create what's called permeability or space between the intestinal gaps, which allows essentially poisons and toxins into your body. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. What I want to share with you right now, though, is what are these chronic diseases of the body that you may be dealing with that are most likely stemming from your gut, all right? At least part of it. And these have to do, believe it or not, with ADHD, so children's learning-based disabilities, okay, autism, any type of gut-based issue that I'm assuming you would already assume, right? IBS, IBD, Crohn's, colitis, yes. But what you might not assume is that most are all anti-aging or aging-based issues with autoimmune issues are related to the gut. So if we're talking about your rheumatoid arthritis, your Hashimoto's, your lupus, your even if we want to look at type 2 diabetes and obesity, right? If we want to look at those can also be tied to the gut as well. If we're looking at schizophrenia, depression, type 1 and type 2 diabetes, sepsis, HIV, high cholesterol, insulin resistance, gliomas, and all sorts of other mood-based issues. All of these being tied to the gut. Skin issues, we already know, headaches, allergies, asthma can be tied to the gut as well. So what I want to share with you is this. It's not a catch-all, but you have to understand the importance of this, which is why I want to go through this today. It's just so vitally important. And I did not get well, no matter how many adrenal-based protocols I was on, until I began to work on my gut. So I was diagnosed with Addison's disease. I was diagnosed with myalgic encephalomyelitis. I was diagnosed with CFS and all sorts of different issues around my mitochondria, my energy, my adrenals, my HPA axis. And I actually got a diagnosis because I did an ACTH stim test. I actually found that my adrenals were not putting out cortisol. So I was put on Cortef, which is a pharmaceutical that worked because it actually put cortisol in my body. But did I want to be on that the rest of my life? Well, no. Once I found out, and again, I was young. I was 19 years old, 20 years old when I finally figured these things out. And I realized, because the internet was just coming around, that people who were put on this did not typically live a long, healthy life, those people with Addison's disease. So I was obviously worried, apprehensive. So I started to go more the natural health route. And you know my story if you listen to previous shows, so I won't go through that today. But those adrenal protocols, they gave me a little bit of a boost, no doubt about it, but I didn't get well. And that's because I didn't understand at that time how to empty that rain barrel at a root causal level. So it wasn't until I got rid of the Candida overgrowth, which is a yeast overgrowth inside of these intestines, until I didn't get rid of the H. pylori in my stomach, until I didn't get rid of the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth that I had in my intestines as well. So small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is basically a bacterial overgrowth of bacteria that shouldn't be there, or even the good bacteria that's now become overgrown. And some people also have parasites as well. So when we look at this, we say, okay, all of these things need to be rebalanced. They just need to be rebalanced. And we'll go over how to do that in just a moment. But we also have to understand that even if you don't have the H. pylori, so a Helicobacter pylori infection, or you don't have yeast overgrowth, or you don't have bacterial overgrowth, or you don't have parasites, you very well may still have intestinal permeability. And that is when these tiny, tight junctions in your intestines become a little wider. And so now, instead of only just letting out all of the good things into your bloodstream, which you need, right? So all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the amino acids from your proteins, all the sugars that have been broken down from your carbohydrates, all the fats, the fatty acids broken down from your fats, from your healthy fats. Well, all of those things help to rebuild the body. That's great. But what happens is, and the intestines are meant to be the outside of the body, right? So when you eat food, it goes down your esophagus, about a foot long, into your stomach. Then after a couple hours or so, depending on how big the meal is, it goes in your small intestine, then makes its way to the large intestine, and then out through the anus as feces or stool or bowel movement. So that's how it's supposed to work. And all the negative things and the bacteria that aren't supposed to make it into the rest of your body, right, that aren't supposed to go into the rest of this body, well, that's taken out as waste. But what happens is when you have intestinal permeability, leaky gut, you allow more of the waste into your bloodstream. So how does this occur? Well, how this occurs is by antibiotic use, and believe it or not, it can just be one time and it can cause intestinal permeability. Oral birth control, smoking, high levels of stress, overtraining, meaning over-exercise, which is a big stressor on the body, medications, tap water, which contains chlorine and fluoride, inflammatory foods that can cause inflammation in the bowels or the intestines, which can then lead to greater increased intestinal permeability, food sensitivities, non-organic foods that contain certain pesticides like glyphosate, as well as alcohol. All of these things and a few more can actually widen those gaps. And now what happens? Well, it allows bacteria from your intestines that was not meant to be outside of the intestines, or toxins and heavy metals, or undigested food particles to then move into your bloodstream. And when that happens, you begin to have what's called an inflammatory response. And that inflammatory response is what we blame for autoimmune issues, for all sorts of inflammation in the body, and we just keep trying to squelch it with medications or anti-inflammatories, natural anti-inflammatories, you name it. But the real issue is that you are constantly filling up your rain barrel every single time you eat inside of your body if you have increased intestinal permeability, also known as leaky gut. Because every time you eat, more fats, more lipopolysaccharides, more proteins, more bacteria, more toxins seep into your bloodstream. And when that happens, additional immune response occur. And that means that if you're eating multiple times per day, which most people are, you're having an inflammatory response pretty much 24 hours per day. And over time, that inflammatory response can then lead to your genetic predispositions that you don't have to have happen, but they lead to your genetic predispositions, like myself with rheumatoid arthritis. Don't have it anymore, but I had it when I had leaky gut. They can lead to your genetic predispositions of type 2 diabetes, of high cholesterol, whatever it might be. And so what has to happen is this, is that in order for us to overcome our diseases of the body that we've been labeled with, we need to move back to root causal based issues. Now, there could be other issues. There could be viral issues, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes virus. There could be issues with heavy metals. There could be high levels of stress. All of those matter. But I'm telling you right now, for the most part, in addition to those items that I just named, there's most likely some type of gut issue. There's an overgrowth of bacteria or yeast or parasites, and there can be increased intestinal permeability along with that. So that every time you're eating even healthy foods, these protein particles and other bacteria are moving into your bloodstream. That's why when people run a food sensitivity test, they see all these different food sensitivities, or they see even worse, a shutdown gut, where the body is no longer responding in the same way to chronic infections, essentially, chronic immune-based inflammatory, what are called cytokine-based reactions, because the body is getting run down. And this is the point that we end up with the brain fog. We end up with sometimes chronic hives, or we're tired all the time. We can't recover well from exercise workouts. We have no ambition. We have no libido. We have no drive. It is those times when the body is now saying, listen, I've been fighting this now for weeks or months or years. How much longer can I be doing this? How much energy do I have? And you, at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword, because on the other side of that, when you have increased intestinal permeability and you have inflammation because the white blood cells are now moving into your intestines, well, now you're not able to absorb as many nutrients. So now you can't break down all of your great B vitamins that help with stress, your vitamin C, your magnesium, your calcium that you need to help balance the hormonal structures of the body, as well as that sympathetic nervous system. So this is now, without a shadow of a doubt, clinically proven to be at the root cause of most diseases in the body. I will link up all additional shows on gut-based protocols. I have plenty more information, so I don't want to overwhelm you today. I just want you to understand that for the most part, when you're dealing with kids' learning disabilities, and you're dealing with mood issues, and you're dealing with skin rashes, and you're dealing with inflammation and joint pain and autoimmune issues and chronic fatigue, I need you to first look at your gut. At least rule it out that that's not the thing, but it is the thing. Usually there's two or three things, but it's usually at least one of the big ones where you're really not going to improve. You're honestly not going to get back to that place of wellness and vitality and zest for life and ambition and drive until you begin to address the gut. So I'm going to link up a lot of additional free resources for you. And I'm going to give you plenty of free podcasts that will be linked up today at stephencabral.com/1943, because there is a way to overcome this. I'm living proof of that. It took me a long time to figure this out, right? So I was sick in the mid to late 90s, and I didn't get well until about 2005, 2006. It's a long time to be sick. And that's simply because the information back then was not as qualified and straightforward and essentially blueprinted it as it is today. So this is the absolute best way to fix this. One, simply learn more about this. If this is new to you, then I recommend doing a few things. One, a lot of free podcasts. I'm going to link them up today on exactly what H. pylori is, on what yeast overgrowth is, on what SIBO is, on what parasites are. If you've never heard about those things, we'll talk about that. I have a close to free book called The Rain Barrel Effect. You can read about that if you've been dealing with chronic weight gain, chronic wellness issues, and aging at a faster rate. That book will help you understand how you got here and how to empty that rain barrel. 100% of all profits from that book go to charity. So you have two pretty close to free resources. After that, there is something called the Gut Rebalancing Health Results Accelerator, where you can take a deep dive into your digestive system for about 4.5 hours and learn as much as you would learn in about 12 different books. I will link that up as well. Let's say you want a little bit more of a one-on-one helping approach. You can do at-home lab testing with any one of our integrative health practitioners all around the world. You can find those integrative health practitioners at integrativehealthpractitioner.org and just click on the practitioners tab. Or you can go right to equi.life, equi.life/labs. And you can run the gut-based labs. You can actually look at, do I have H. pylori? Do I have yeast overgrowth? Do I have bacterial overgrowth? Do I have parasites? Do I have inflammatory food sensitivities? 3 labs that you would run: the bacteria and parasite stool test. You would run the Candida metabolic and vitamins urine test, and you would run the IgG food sensitivities test, and that's a simple blood spot from the finger. These are easy tests to run at home for you or any family member, and they're going to give you definitive results as to what is going on in your gut. So you have that option. The next option that you have is if you don't want a lab test, you can't afford lab testing, it's just not right for you, you can actually go right into whatever it is that you believe you're dealing with. And I have a lot of free assessments on this as well. So you can go to stevencabral.com/assessments and actually see if you might have, just by, again, it's not diagnostic, but see if you might believe that you have yeast overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, parasites, H. pylori. And you can begin one of those rebalancing protocols, okay? They're not medical treatment protocols. Only an MD can give you a medical diagnostic or treatment protocol. What I do is look at a root causal level. That's what we've been helping people do for the past 20 years. And that's a lot of clients. We have over 250,000 client appointments worth of data. This works, right? These things work. They've worked for now many thousands of years. We've just updated them now to state-of-the-art science. And one of those that's the most popular is the CBO protocol for digestive issues. You begin the CBO protocol, you then complete the CBO finisher, and you really want to then focus more on anti-inflammatory based food groups. If you don't know about anti-inflammatory based foods, I will link up another show that we just did a couple weeks ago, and on the top anti-inflammatory foods, that was episode 1923. So again, today's show was to provide you with the research, to let you know that if you thought that there was an underlying root cause and your medical doctors, your PCP weren't telling you about it, there is. And I don't want you to take the 10 years it took me to get well in order for you to get well. Because once you learn these things and once you begin to implement them, you can be well within about 3 to 6 months for most people. Longer, more debilitating diseases of the body might take a little longer, but they're not going to take a lot longer. And you don't get better all at once. You get better each and every week, each and every month. So I'm always here for you. I really am. If you have questions, you let me know, okay? Comment below on this YouTube video or on Instagram. Let me know with Ask Cabral. You can ask a question inside of cabralsupportgroup.com. However you need help, we are going to be there for you. Just let us know. But again, I want you to understand that if you're dealing with any wellness issue, any weight gain based issue, any aging based issue, and you are not addressing and looking at the guts, which is the epicenter, right? The old disease begins in the gut 25 years ago from Hippocrates, 6,000 years ago from Ayurvedic medicine, and now modern day science states it. Look at the gut. If you're dealing with wellness issues, weight gain issues, aging issues, I want you to make sure that you address this, because if you do, it can be absolutely life-changing. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Again, if we can help, just let us know. And of course, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. Your support means the world to me. It really does, which is why I love to be able to create offers like this for our Equalife and podcast listener community. We are right now offering over at Equalife a buy one Fatlocity, gift one to anyone of your choice. We've never done this before. It's essentially a $99 giveaway for someone that you believe would be a great fit for Fatlocity, or someone that you would love to have join you for our Fatlocity weight loss system. Remember, this is the top scientifically proven weight loss system in the world, with over 24 clinically verified studies based on the exact patented ingredients inside of Fatlocity. You can check it all out by simply going to equi.life/Fatlocity, and you'll learn all about the system. Not only do you get the nutritional supplements backed by science, which are the ingredients inside of that are clinically proven orthomolecular nutrients and blended with Ayurvedic-based herbal nutrients, but you also get my personal course that I give you for free whenever you sign up for Fatlocity. It's going to give you the diet plan, the nutrition plan. It's going to help you learn about your carbohydrate tolerance, which I talked about years ago, and it's now becoming much more popular. So it's all inclusive. It really is. It is the system that's going to help you burn the fat and keep it off, even if you haven't been successful in the past. And because we know that really you want to embody and dive into a weight loss program with a partner. It just makes it so much better when you have the two of each other to lean on, right? When times are getting a little bit tough for you, then you can lean on someone else. And when they're having challenges, they can lean on you. You're both going through the system together. So right now, over at eco.life. You can click on the button right on the homepage while supplies last of buy one Fatlocity, gift one free. Head on over, join up with a friend. We would love to hear your success story soon. Take care.